I'm Eric Peterson, and you're listening to Pod Clubhouse.
Pod Clubhouse.
Well, I will let you do the negotiating from now on for us.
Allison, no. I am not here for us. Okay? I am helping you with this one last thing.
Just say it. Fake my own death.
Because when you go, you're taking all this shit with you. And everything you dragged me into.
I know.
Tammy is still asking questions about Nick. We broke my brother. Ever since I actually made the decision to start talking to you, I don't think that I've had one day that's felt normal or easy. You're pretty much a pain in my ass, and most days you suck.
I know that too.
Welcome to Kevin Can Podcast Himself, your dedicated after-show podcast for the AMC series Kevin Can Fuck Himself. This is Caroline.
And this is Mike. Tonight we're discussing episode 2 of season 2, The Way We Were. It was written by series showrunner Craig DiGregorio, and once again it was directed by Anna DeCosa, who directed last week's episode, and I think 6 of the 8 episodes from season 1.
Anna really has her hand in like this entire series.
The unsung player in the creative staff that you never really hear about her. I mean, you hear about Craig a bit. You hear obviously a lot about Valerie. Never hear about Anna, but
we might have to get her on here. I'd love to hear her take on it.
We gotta pick her brain.
Yeah, there's so much with the different styles. Would really like to know how she kind of like hashed that all out in her mind.
Anna DeCosa, if you're listening, we want you on the show.
Yeah, I want to know how you thought about this one. Just a community note, if you want to continue the conversation with us and other fans, come on over to Facebook and Kevin Can F Himself fans. Chat it up with us. Please answer those couple of questions. We just want to make sure you're not a weirdo. You're not trying to come on here and scream at everybody. So answer those couple of questions and we'll let you in, and we would love to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, this is a fun one. One of the rules is bullying speech and harassment allowed in the group. And if you have read the rules, you'll see it is not. The amount of people who write yes.
I know.
It's shocking. It's
shocking to me that they even answer the question, but then they write yes.
Yes,
what?
They answer the question wrong. It blows my lid. And I will decline you.
How many groups encourage bullying speech? Like, what?
Right. Especially for this show. And that's why we do it. I mean, you guys, you and Paul and a lot of people connected to Pod Clubhouse run a lot of Facebook groups. This one is one of the more sensitive topic shows, I think, that we cover.
Surely, because a lot of people bring in their personal experience.
Yes, and it's an active group, but it's, I think, one of the reasons that the group has been able to be active and people are able to talk about their theories and their feelings on the show is because it is a private group. You can't share the posts. Every post has to be approved by us before it's allowed to go up. We go through the comments. We screen stuff out. So it's a good little group. It's a I don't want to say a safe space.
Nothing on
the internet is a
media.
safe space.
We really do try. We try to keep it to the show for sure. But there's also, if you need to comment about something, there's a anonymous posting option that you can tell something, personal about yourself and not reveal who you are.
Just a reminder that we assume you have watched this episode, and this is not going to be a step-by-step recap of the episode. So if you haven't and you don't want to be spoiled about what we're going to say, stop, pause, go watch it, come back. We're here. We'll be waiting for you. All right, let's get right into our table setting for the evening. Let's do the title card. This was a fun one. It was the boiling teapot sound with steam blowing over the UC and the word fuck. It was oddly against a white backsplash that reminded me of a bathroom, not of a kitchen backsplash. But there you go. I thought the boiling teapot, whistling teapot was an interesting metaphor because I think in this episode, Neil, who eventually experiences the boiling teapot in this episode, I think it's a metaphor for him and what's going on inside his brain. Am I being too artsy fartsy with that interpretation, you think?
No, I think it's absolutely like coming to a head. That's how it feels like. It's like this could be it. The tooting of the teapot.
I literally wrote my notes. Neil is the teapot ready to boil over.
That's right.
So,
he's all steamed up.
Let's talk about Neil while we're here. Were you surprised the episode starts with this plan to blackmail him, to keep him quiet? I mean, it makes sense the way they lay it out. He's got the connection to Nick through the youth hockey team. He has a criminal record, and he did have that exclamation in front of Tammy at the end of season 1 where he comes in and says, Kevin has betrayed me. So motive, record, connection to the guy, breaking into the house. It makes sense, but also I didn't think that was where they were to go with their plan.
See, I thought they were going to rely on kind of this idea of like, you hit your head, you don't know what you're talking about. That isn't what anyone said. And if they just stuck tight to that of like, that's not what anyone said, you're confused, you're delusional, you know, you had a head injury. If you just stuck to that and both of you did, I think that it would work to make the other person eventually be like, maybe I didn't hear them right. Like, it is crazy. But they do have excellent reasons for why Neil would be the much more obvious person to have committed some sort of, you know, attack on Kevin.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that, though, is had they gone that route, I don't think you get Neil pulled into the single cam world, right? Or not still being pulled into the single cam world if that was how they had gone, because it would have been appealing to he is gullible and an idiot and easily manipulated, which maybe he is still easily manipulated by Kevin, but it seems increasingly less easily manipulated. And also it's allowing you to see kind of what the character actually is. You know, it was very telling in the first episode where Patty has that little speech about he just wants to make you think he's an idiot, you know, so that you'll, you know, pay his rent for 30 years and bail him out. You know, this is the real Neil. He's not an idiot. He, like Allison, knows their strengths and their weaknesses and can use them to move forward their own agenda.
One of the things that I think a lot about Neil, and you touched upon this when we actually talked to Alex Bonifer, is that he is physically a very large guy and he can be very intimidating if he's in serious mode. And so I can see where it would be advantageous to him to also play this kind of a little bit more goofy, a little bit more silly kind of character, because it makes him much more unassuming. You're not going to be nervous about him being around if he seems like he's not that smart, but he's just a kind of a goofy guy, versus if he was, you know, this more serious, you think he could be like diabolical or super clever, then paired with his size, you think, oh man, this guy is somebody we all need to be scared of.
True or false? Neil O'Connor is even more scary and terrifying with a shaved head and a stapled head wound.
Yeah, very much so.
Very true. Very
true.
Very
much so. That was a really gross little, like, you know, effect there on his head. That little bald spot.
Yeah, and if you zoom in really on it, like
it
definitely looked like something out of like Frankenstein's monster kind of thing, with like the bolts and the scars and the stitches in his neck. You know, that's what his head looked like. It was truly terrifying.
Well, and in a way, then you could say maybe they've made a monster.
It's alive. Exactly. It's alive.
And he's like stumbling towards your home.
You know what Allison would say to that?
God damn it!
She would not be happy with this idea that they've made a monster. We have Annie Murphy here in studio just to say God damn it periodically. So. We see Neil spacing out and remembering the attack a couple of different times in this episode. Once he is getting a beer inside Kevin and Allison's kitchen, and the kind of high-pitched, whiny tone sound strikes up as he goes to sit at the table, and he kind of grabs at his head like his head physically hurts him, and he remembers the attack. He remembers it when he's standing over the teapot and it begins to boil, which then flips into Kevin coming in the kitchen, and it switches to the multicam. Is he feeling remorse, do you think? Is he feeling pity for himself? What's the emotion that's going on here that he's focusing on being struck and then the aftermath?
It's partially just trauma and just reliving the pain of it. For him, he's in this kind of no man's land of like, he wants to tell, but he also is just sort of like grappling with what happened, like trying to sort it out. So I don't think it was remorse, and I don't think it's pity. I think it's more like, I don't know what to do, like confused and hurt, physically hurt, and also just having those bad memories, just reliving it. There's times I've had where like like I've been in a hospital that bad things have happened. And then I'm there literally a decade later and I go to push the elevator button and I get that like buzz kind of feeling of like, like I was here before and this was a terrible situation. And you get that. And I didn't have a full flashback, but you get that like visceral, like, I don't want to be here. This was where a bad thing happened.
Location and trauma linked. I mean, not to jump ahead to next week's episode, but this idea of a place can remind you of a trauma, good or bad, or whether you've caused the trauma or just experienced it or were the victim of the trauma. It's another little parallel between Allison and Neil. I think the show is being very smart in these first couple of episodes coming into season 2 of showing us that Allison and Neil maybe have more in common than anyone ever realized, and certainly more than the two of them would ever admit, given how they feel about each other right now.
I need you to get focused. I know. I'm trying. And you've been such a wonderful, if demanding, boss. But I need to get my head on straight. I gotta tell you something.
Didn't you just tell me something like last week? I mean, what else could there be?
She's trying to kill you.
The reporter? I mean, that is an awfully short skirt she's wearing.
No. Not the reporter. Allison. Allison tried to kill you.
Oh, yeah, I know about that.
What?
Yeah. I mean, Neil, what is marriage if not a death sentence, right?
No.
You know, that's actually a pretty good line. I'm going to say that to the lady reporter to explain why the Worcester Wild dude has been a bachelor for life. Let's go!
No, Kev, wait. She hired...
You know, we talked a little bit about already the teapot boiling over metaphor. It's the second time he's having this flashback. It comes to the teapot is boiling. Kevin comes in and Neil boils over. He can't keep it in anymore. And he turns to him. Kevin just laughs it off. He doesn't listen to Neil and he just laughs it off. And he goes to the marriage is a death sentence joke.
I was really surprised. I thought there was going to be a little bit more of a moment of Kevin being like, what are you talking about? And them having to go back and forth a little bit more. And maybe Kevin does brush it off, but I didn't expect it to be instant brush off. I didn't expect him to completely ignore what Neil said. I know that it's very shocking and kind of unrealistic, especially from Kevin's point of view, that Allison would or try or anything like that, try to kill him. So I guess maybe it's something that sounds so absurd, you just immediately dismiss it. I thought he really would give Neil a little bit more time on that, but nothing.
So that's why you tried to kill him? Because he doesn't care when you whine?
Maybe he doesn't care when I whine, but he laughs when you bleed.
Oh, come on.
Maybe someday you'll see that.
Neil, Patty, and Allison all heard truth from the person they didn't want to hear truth bombs from, and that we had this thought that it was going to affect them, and it was maybe advice they needed to hear even if they didn't want to hear it, or certainly didn't want to hear it from who was giving it to them. The activity of Kevin literally laughing at Neil, given Neil's state, given the teapot boiling over feeling, and this is the reaction it's met with. This is the most serious thing that Neil could think of. This man that I love and devote my life to, his wife tried to murder him, and he's laughing at me when I tell him this. That's devastating, and I have to wonder what kind of effect going forward this specific moment may have for Neil, especially with relationship to Kevin.
And I think to even drill down even further on that, he's laughing at the idea that Neil got hurt. He's making fun of his hair. He's making fun of the fact that he fell down. He was already saying, I thought you would have done this, and like made fun of him some other, like, you know, like, you're such a klutz, you're such a jerk kind of way. So he's actively like laughing at him, making fun of him, and ignoring what he said. Like, when you combine all of those things, that's exactly what Allison said to him. You know, he's going to be laughing at your pain, essentially, and he was. And
he gives a theory about what he thinks happened to him. You know, like, he just kicks him and abuses him, and Neil is bear hugging him and devoting his life to him.
You know, as a newly minted and very, very busy local celebrity, I'm I'm quite overwhelmed.
Oh, I get it, man.
You know, I
feel
have
like
this big interview coming up. I've got ribbon cutting ceremonies, and of course, I still have my regular 9-to-3 job. And I'm big enough to admit when I need help.
Help sounds great, yeah, thank you.
Which is exactly what I wanted to hear, because I have the opportunity of a lifetime for you. I choose you to be my altar boy, my go-to guy, my Girl Friday.
Except I'm a boy?
Except you're a boy. You are going to be my new official assistant.
Oh. Distraction does sound pretty good.
Great. But the job is devotion, Neil. You'll put your own problems aside and think of only me 24/7.
That sounds amazing.
So he hires Neil as an assistant, and this is the job. The job is devotion. It's setting aside your own problems and worries and thinking about me 24/7. And that's all Neil wants to do. He's like, man, I could sure deal with that right now. That sounds wonderful. Neil doesn't see it yet, but you have to think this is all, if he's spending all this time thinking and alone with his brain now in the single cam world, these actions by Kevin have to start weeding their way in.
I feel like it did. I really feel like he was pretty stunned at Kevin's response and the combination of Allison's words previously and then his own. I mean, he had to get up a lot of guts to tell Kevin what happened. Like, I mean, I'm sure he had been grappling this entire time about, do I tell him? Do I not? What do I do? And he was willing to have the whole situation, what Patty and Allison laid out. Like, you're the one with the record. If you say anything, we're just going to turn this around on you. Like, he was willing to throw all caution to the wind and put himself out there to tell Kevin and protect him. And Kevin did not care. He did not listen.
No. You know, if you open up the spout when the teapot is still on the stovetop, it just starts spitting hot water everywhere. It can't control itself. And it was the teapot also that Allison hits him with at the beginning of episode 1 too. That teapot has a lot of metaphor legs.
Right? It's carrying a lot of weight in this story.
Let's stay in the sitcom plot just to knock it out. And it was interesting, the sitcom section or the multicam section of the show feels like it's becoming increasingly more important. The lines are getting so blurred between the switches, like the teapot, right? That wasn't all going from room to room. Neil was there in the kitchen by himself, remembering the attack. And then it's in the multicam because Kevin enters the room. There was great back and forth with the swinging door in episode 1 last week that I don't even think we talked about. That was fantastic, where in the kitchen, it was single cam. In the living room, it was Pete and Kevin in the multicam. And as the door swung back and forth, it was switching back and forth. Like, these worlds are colliding. So I think the sitcom is becoming more important. And I think in this episode it is because we're seeing more of the tonal shift. You made a great point at the end of last week's episode about how Allison telling Kevin in reaction to him, I want you to come cheer me on for my photo shoot. She says, I'd rather fake my own death. And she gets the joke to the laugh track. That never happens in this show. And in this episode, when he criticizes her for wearing the pearls, she says, I do think I'm better than you. Later on, Allison and Neil in the multicam world both come to Patty's defense in the same way at the same time and say, leave her alone.
I was surprised at that one. That really took me aback.
It took me aback too. But then they also exchange looks. They look at each other in kind of a sitcom-y way, but also in a very pointed way, more so than this multicam ever does. Like, what was that? That's, again, these two are on the same parallel path. But these tonal shifts, they started at the end of last week's episode, but more and more, Allison is getting the joke back. She's getting her line, right? If you listen to Valerie Armstrong's interviews that she did for the show, especially in season 1, she talks about how the impetus was when you watch Kevin Can Wait or The King of Queens or any of a lot of the classic schlubby husband, hot wife sitcoms, the wife never gets the joke. Right? She never gets the line. And her inspiration for the show was listening to a podcast where 2 comedian actresses were talking about how they would go in the pilot season. This is a new comedy. The wife is going to be the funny one. And then they get in the room and the wife was never the funny one. She was always the straight man. She was always the butt of the joke. Here Allison is getting to be the funny one, or quote unquote funny one, for the laugh track. That's huge. That's monumental.
And I felt like all of the jokes are so much more harsh between both of them. Like, you know, we're even when you have Neil saying, you know, Allison tried to kill you, and you're getting like this laugh and stuff, like all of the content, all of the lines are actually way more weighty and serious. Like, it's not just a bunch of like slapstick jokes. It's like, I want to fake my own death. Like these are these are like serious words that are being put into this multicam, you know, universe.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to see how the show continues to evolve in this way. This is something that the listeners, if you're listening, definitely pay attention to because they set the tone at the end of episode 1, and we saw it several times in this episode. Pay attention to it, because we'll definitely continue to call it out, but I think it's an important way of viewing how this show is evolving and how these worlds are colliding. The wall between the multicam and the single cam feel like they're collapsing a bit. The whole sitcom setup was Wild Dude Kevin is going to be interviewed by the local paper about his candidacy and the Wild Dude attitude. There's really nothing surprising in the actual interview storyline. It goes exactly how you think a guy like Kevin would be, and Neil is his devoted assistant. I just want to give Eric Peterson and Alex Bonifer such great credit. The end of the interview scene really entertained me, from the hot wings in the face and the eyes, and then falling on the floor, and Neil coming in with the tray service and falling over him. The two of them on their knees at the end of it, with Neil holding out the little saucer cup so pathetically. It was great. It was really good classic physical comedy.
It was so cringy, though. Like, I mean, I appreciate everything about Eric Peterson and what he can do, but man, his face, oof, it was cringy. Everything he was doing, I was like, oh my God, like it's like silly putty. Like the way that he can make it be so crazy looking, and just, I don't know. It was funny, don't get me wrong, but it was just like,
when he said my eyes are sweaty, I definitely chortled a bit. Like, my eyes are sweaty. They're sweaty. It was very, very funny to me.
I mean, you knew he was going to put his hands in his eyes. His
of
fingers
course,
like right up to his eyes.
Because we've
like,
seen
God.
this episode. I feel like we've all seen this episode of
Yes.
90s sitcom, 80s sitcom 1,000 times. It's so familiar. Of course he's going to touch his eyes. The second he puts both of those fingers into the wing sauce, it was like, it's only a matter of time. It's a clock. There's a clock ticking it out until he touches them with his eyes.
Oh my God.
Let's talk about Kelly, the reporter, and the fact that she knows Allison.
You want to come in? Answer some questions with him?
No, he's all yours. No one wants to read about me.
You were in the paper like every other week in high school.
Well, that was a long time ago.
Come on, I could put a little thing in there about that relay junior year at Nationals. We could relive our glory days a little bit.
I don't know if they're glory days if you come in second.
Well, we would have probably come in first that next year if you hadn't have bailed. I just mean, I didn't get it. You probably could have gone to college or something. Maybe not BC, but like a state school.
I never really thought about it.
What do you mean? Everybody wanted to get out of here. You at least had a shot.
No, I really didn't.
I am a sucker for when we get backstory on any of these characters. I feel like we've gotten some glimpses into Patty and Neil. We really haven't gotten a ton of backstory or a look into Allison's past. The reporter being here really kind of shined light on it.
Try to remind me, do we have any other information about why she didn't swim senior year? I was trying to remember, like, where was that in the timeline of any other information that we've gotten? We knew she was a swimmer, and we know that she meets Kevin at some point. I didn't get the idea that we knew why or what happened senior year necessarily of like why she didn't swim.
I think all we know is that she meets Kevin and she doesn't go to college. I don't think we really ever had a firm timeline on when that happened.
That's part of Allison that like we don't delve into. She can be Kevin-esque, where she can be very self-centered, and all we know is that Allison was this great swimmer. So now to get this part where it's like, yeah, and you bailed on us and the team didn't get to continue because you bailed out on us. We didn't get to like, realize our full potential. That's the type of stuff that is never said about Allison, that she also has things that she's done to people that are not very nice or that really wrecked stuff in their lives. Important to kind of balance that out a little bit story-wise.
It is. And it also, I mean, just the idea of Kelly saying to her, everyone wanted to get out of town and you actually had a shot to do it, is news.
I was more surprised in that situation that she actually admitted that she was Kevin's wife, that was her husband in there. Like, I didn't think she would say that to Kelly. I thought she was going to say something else, like, oh, I was just waiting for someone or something. I don't know what. But the way that she was like, oh, that's my husband. I don't know. I didn't think she would, like, actually claim him like that.
I think she's just resigned to it. I mean, remember, being Kevin's wife got her out of a DUI and an accident ticket last week. Plus Kevin's idea that he's a bachelor kind of thing. And all of that seemed silly. And I think it was more about her not wanting to go along with Kevin's cockamamie story than anything else. Plus she's standing in like the yard, she's standing,
right.
she's
what
standing
else
right.
She be doing?
What else is
right.
she doing there? Right. It's almost worse to be his girlfriend dating him as he is now than being his wife, but I guess that maybe she was supposed to be his cousin. But yeah, no, I think it just seemed a silly lie for her to perpetrate. Kelly says to her, everyone wanted to get out of town and you actually had a legitimate shot to do so, to go to college. And Allison's response is, no, I didn't. That's the only reason that I want to temper it, that it was a case of Allison abandoning the team versus some intervening force that's going to prevent her from having remained on the team.
It's fair, but I don't know if we're going to get more behind this, because we've always just got little, drips and drabs about, what exactly was going on. And it's just usually in terms of things like I remember so clearly when she's like, I always let myself like have like a, like a cheeseburger or whatever after I swam and did my practice and stuff. So just, I don't know. It was good insight into her.
It is good insight to her. And it's interesting too, because remember, we spent time in season 1 trying to parse out the ages here.
Right. So they got married around 25 and she was probably, she probably met him around 21.
If she's 36, that makes her 21 when she meets Kevin. So that works out.
I think my big thing about Allison is because I've played on so many sports teams for so long, and I know you have too. And there's something about bailing senior year, especially if you're in some sort of like relay or something like that, where you've been like working for years and years on something together. The idea that you would have just taken off that last year when you would have been like your most powerful, it really just makes me like second guess Allison a little bit more and be like, what is exactly going on with you? And all of your dreams about everything, you always definitely do blame Kevin, but what role do you play here? And like, what else are you doing that you would have left your team?
The whole storyline with Diane in this episode makes you wonder about Allison.
I love that Billy saw it right away.
Well, this was my niece's idea.
We wanted to see what kind of services you offer to someone like Diane. Someone who doesn't realistically have the option of divorce.
I don't?
It's expensive. It would take years. It would take Chuck actually letting you leave. So, do you just look into people, or can you kind of order off the menu?
So you're looking for a way out?
Well,
Yes. I have heard of women, getting out. They just disappear. People assume that they died. So how realistic is that?
You ever see Snapped?
No. Do I look like someone who would watch that?
I'm just saying, doing it is realistic. Diane getting away with it's another thing.
I'm sorry. I'm not even sure I want to leave Chuck, and now I'm on Snap.
No.
Allison's using Diane to get access to this PI. Diane even says, it was my niece's idea, ... Allison is Kevin-esque. Here again, we have her using, Diane again. There's, I think, 2 or 3 different times in this episode alone where Allison goes to make amends with a person or say something nice to a person and then immediately follows it up with, I need a favor of some sort.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she does it to Sam in Bev's Diner. Like, I really want to heal our relationship. I need to ask you a favor. Like, there's no space there. She's got no chill when it comes to using people.
I was thrilled to have Billy, though, like, see this for what it was. Like, anytime you have in this kind of scenario where everyone's going along in this sort of like, you just got used to it as an audience member, that like nobody seems to see what's really going on here. No one seems to see Allison for what she is or Kevin for what he is. To have Billy be like, so when you have your $350, we'll talk about your problems. I was like, burn! burn. That was like right to the point and right away. Like we didn't have to go 20 meetings before he says, hey, jig is up. I know what you're doing. Right away, Billy's like, nope, not doing this.
Right,
this is not a 2-for-1 special.
But it makes so much sense that it's Billy, the questionably moral, PI kind of guy. It just he is giving her eye daggers basically the entire scene. Even before Diane takes steps out to take the call from Chuck, he's staring at Allison like, "What is your scam? We're not here for Diane." He knows her. Yeah, I loved it too, and I liked it that it seemed like he was onto her immediately before any words were even like spoken. Getting into what Allison is seeking here, she mentions to Billy, but really to Diane, because this is the reaction I found interesting, the idea that divorce wouldn't be very easy or even possible for Diane, and so that she's quote unquote looking for a way out. Diane doesn't seem like she had ever considered the fact that she might not be able to get a divorce. Listening to Allison lay out the reasons why a divorce may not be so simple, people ask, why doesn't Allison just divorce Kevin? Why doesn't she just leave? This episode, I think, goes a long way of explaining why you can't just get a divorce, why you can't maybe just leave, maybe why you have to take the extreme step of faking your death.
If you're unsure about this, go back and listen to our Valerie interview, because Valerie does make a point of saying that Diane is supposed to be a future version of Allison. And so, you could kind of say, oh, well, maybe Allison's just projecting or whatever. I mean, the creator writer's saying, nope, Diane is the future version of Allison. So if she's saying like, this isn't going to be easy for you, then you should take that as like fact, that this is the situation and that Diane would not just be able to leave either. And obviously Chuck is painted to be a creepier dude than Kevin, but that's important because, again, Diane and Chuck are supposed to be Kevin and Allison later, future versions.
Billy the PI, Allison and Patty meet up with Billy the PI, and he's standing by his wagoneer. He says Chuck took a bat to the truck just for suspecting that he had helped Diane skip town, which is news because Allison didn't know Diane had skipped town. Apparently she left a note and said she was going to South Carolina. Just on that news alone, Chuck hunted the PI down, bashed in his window. Chuck is single cam Kevin. So why can't she just disappear? Why can't she just divorce him? Because there is a world in which Kevin, lovably goofy, selfish, nasty Kevin, exists in the single cam world, and he takes bats to people's fucking truck window and bashes them in. God knows what Chuck will do to Diane when he eventually gets a hold of her. That's why Allison can't just divorce Kevin. There's no South Carolina far enough from Massachusetts that a single cam Kevin isn't going to go track her down and do something maybe potentially horrible to her. Diane is Allison. She is a cautionary tale for what Allison's life will be like if Allison makes the wrong choices here in this moment, trying to escape her marriage from Kevin. I thought this was the single most important scene of the episode.
If you're just a regular audience member who hasn't listened to interviews, though, I don't know that you 100% make the connection that Diane and Chuck are Allison and Kevin. I don't know if just the average person does. I think it's very helpful, though, to go listen to that interview with Valerie because she spells it out for you. And that is like the extra little nugget that things like podcasts can offer you.
Let's stay with Diane and Allison. While Allison asks, again, she's doing all this, I'm taking you to the PI. And then she asks for her favor. Can I have the job back at the Packy? Because she says she's saving for a vacation.
That was such a strange, excuse. I was like, a vacation? I don't know.
A permanent vacation.
Oh, my God.
To quote Aerosmith's album. Yeah, and Diane doesn't call her on that, but, it's hard to peg how much Diane is paying attention to versus not paying attention to.
I think this goes back to, that everyone is purely caring all about themselves. The amount of time you think someone is actually listening or looking at you or paying attention to you versus how much they're in their own head thinking about themselves and their own situation. I think the Diane Allison stuff is perfection in this. No one's really listening to anybody. They're just talking at each other, and Diane almost always has that faraway look on her eyes, like she's thinking about 20 other things.
But the interesting takeaway from this whole scene, though, is that Diane lets Allison know that Kevin has a secret storage unit, that Kevin has been keeping his quote-unquote valuables out of the house since the break-in and keeping them in Chuck's storage unit.
My jaw hit the floor. When I heard that Kevin had a storage unit and Allison had no idea, I was like, oh my God. Her eyes were like, What? No, when they added on the extra line of took out the valuables because of the break-in, that actually smoothed it a little bit, because I thought, how long's he had this storage unit? What the hell else is in there? So it actually made it a little bit more logical, but I was just like, oh my God, like I can't even believe how many secrets this guy has.
Secrets also, but also it's not his storage unit, it's Chuck's. Chuck is not Kevin's family. Chuck is Allison's family. So it's even more kind of fucked up that he didn't tell her. Yes, it smooths it over a little bit that he removed the valuables after the break-in, but there's probably stuff in there that probably predates the break-in.
I have to guess, yes.
And the fact is, Chuck is not Kevin's family, so he went around Allison to talk to Chuck and or Diane about moving stuff out of the house. They probably assumed Allison knew.
And that's to say nothing of the fact that she may have had valuable things that, like, if we're going to do this, if we're going to think like maybe our house is some sort of target, maybe we should put all of our valuables in a storage unit and, you know, keep it locked up until we figure out everything. But Allison would probably have things. There's probably other things that aren't just Kevin's things, you know, that have value.
Well, there's the pearl necklace. An heirloom from her grandmother passed down to her was in that storage unit. She didn't know that the pearl necklace was in the storage unit. She happened upon it when she was going through it. I thought it was interesting that the Wade Boggs card is in here because I hadn't noticed, and I should have. It had not been hanging on the wall because remember in season 1, the Wade Boggs card used to hang right by the front door, and it's gone. It's missing. So it was a nice little detail because they had mentioned the Wade Boggs card a couple of times in season 1 that it was here. The more shocking part, of course, is that the Wade Boggs card is stolen. This made my jaw hit the floor.
Yes. I was like, Kevin, like, what in the hell? Like, I was totally taken aback. But also, again, another layer to understand how, like, dangerous and just horrible he is. Like, this is where we're ratcheting everything up. Every comment, everything that happens is not just a prank. It's not just a side snotty comment. Now we're starting to say worse things, and we're starting to reveal way worse things.
I want everyone to do a thought experiment. And just to help as you're viewing this, everything Kevin does, everything Kevin says, imagine he's saying it in the single cam world, because we have a basis for this now. We have seen Neil now say things in the single cam world, and you can imagine what they would sound like if he was still in the multicam world. I want you guys to do the reverse thought experiment on that. Everything Kevin says, the idea of stealing the Wade Boggs card, telling Neil that he thought he fell down, passed out, and split his head open. Imagine all of that happening in the single cam world. And I think you'll find it probably is very menacing. At the minimum, it is probably extremely nasty and not the way you would ever want any of like your children to be spoken to if you were, say, Allison's parents. I can't imagine anyone would be okay with their partner being treated and talked to the way it would come off if Kevin was talking to her in the single cam world. It's shocking. Here's a nice little twist, though. And this is unconfirmed by the show, but I like this. So we learned by the pawn shop man, James, who was very sweet on Diane, which I thought was funny, that the card was stolen 8 years ago from a Brenda Daly. No relation to you and Paul, I'm assuming.
None that I'm aware.
You should ask Paul if he has any Brendas that are Red Sox fans.
I'll get on it.
Okay. Go way back to episode 1 of season 1. Kevin, or Kelvin, is complaining to Allison about how someone at work always gets the fiber optic jobs. And even though it's the same work, it's more prestigious to him. And so he's offended. The person who always gets the fiber optic jobs, her name is Brenda.
Oh, that is so sad. So he stole this from a coworker, huh?
He stole this from a coworker.
Such a dick.
And presumably because it was a petty reaction to
just to be mean.
Just because she gets the job that he wants, even though he hates his job, just to be a dick about it, and because he thought that he should have possession of it instead of her. And it was a gift to Brenda, right? On the back of it says to Brenda. Someone gave that to Brenda, and Kevin was like, "No, it's mine now." Crazy. Crazy. It was like, does this man know no limits in how shitty a human being he is?
I think additionally, if you steal something like that and then you hang it by your front door, it's like you want every single person to know that you took it. You know, in your inside, you know you took it. Allison doesn't know that it's stolen, but inside, you know, I mean, for God's sake, his boss comes to their house and would have, you know, potentially seen that on the wall. And it's hard to believe that Brenda wouldn't be like saying stuff at work about how something got stolen from her. He doesn't care. That's how friggin' bold he is. That's how, like, you know, just untouchable he thinks he is, that he doesn't just steal it. He hangs it by the front door.
Let's talk about James at the pawn shop. I mentioned how sweet he is on her, and which is, you know, cute or whatever. Like the way his attitude changes when he sees it's her in the pawn shop. But also, how often is Diane here hawking stuff of Chuck's that he knows her so well? Like, I mean, she clearly makes it seem like they have the kind of working business relationship where he can't screw Allison over because Diane seems to be such a loyal customer to using his pawn shop. What is Diane doing with Chuck's belongings to make herself some extra scratch on the side?
Well, if you think of her as the future Allison, it's like, you know, we're kind of seeing the little stair steps of her starting to realize, you know, what can I get out of being Mrs. McRoberts? And, you know, I feel like this is one of those things where you can see, like, in the future, look, she just starts taking his stuff and, you know, making it her own and pawning it for her own adventures.
How sad that James knows all about Chuck and Tanya. Such a small town little detail that I thought just resonated.
This would have been scandalous, man. Yeah. Scandalous.
Tanya Iacona with the curly hair. A nice little detail in here. Allison offhandedly tells Diane or mentions Diane, but you could always leave, which Allison knows. I mean, based on her own circumstances, which is probably not true. But again, Allison says things to Diane all the time, advice-wise, without really thinking through what she's saying. But she says offhandedly, you can leave. Diane doesn't react to that verbally, but her whole body language, it tells you. I thought there was a nice little bit of acting from Ms. Dembo, who plays Diane.
I think Diane has a lot of micro expression stuff going on her face that, you know, like when I said she's often has this like distant look in her eyes, like she's thinking about 20 other things. Like she has the weight on her shoulders. You know, I just feel like she's got so much like swirling around in her head that things like Allison, I don't know, she just seems like, you know, just like white noise, just like whatever, you know, keep saying whatever. But every once in a while something pierces through and you can see that small like look in her face where you're like, oof, that one hit.
It's very funny that you just compared Allison speaking to white noise, because it's in this episode where Kevin, when he comes in with the boiling teapot, says that the whistle of the teapot reminds him of when Allison is trying to explain things to him.
Yikes.
Yeah. She's kind of like Neil, right? No one listens to her, but also she does shitty things herself, though, too.
For sure. She's under pressure in this, you know, and in her ways, you know, there's things going on with her that are just sometimes she literally boils over and it comes out in a very, you know, difficult to hear kind of way that I get it. I do understand that, but it's just, I don't know. It's hard because when you see it even in between her and Diane, it's like, oh man, like how many people are just like they're just like tuning her out, you know?
Yeah.
What a difficult way to live your life where all these people are tuning you out all the time.
You're just invisible in your own world, just literally invisible in so many ways. Before we leave this whole section of the episode, Neil shows up at the storage unit while Allison is there. And how funny that the can opener, Diane finds the can opener in the storage unit. Why is the can opener in the storage unit?
Is being used in a very odd way. It's being just used as like an extra closet.
It has to be super close to their house for them to be leaving stuff like their can opener in there.
Yeah,
the can opener, which was the source of the fight between Chuck and Diane earlier in the episode.
But then does that also make you wonder if, like, did Chuck put that in there and then is, like, screaming at Diane about it on purpose? Not on purpose. I don't know.
Well, she's surprised that the can opener's there, so I didn't get the impression that she had put it in there.
No, I don't think she put shit in there. I don't think she does. This is not her.
Well, the question is,
storage unit.
Is Chuck gaslighting her?
Yeah.
Probably because he's Kevin. Because he's single cam Kevin.
And he's 10 years or more past this version of Kevin, so much worse. So
even more
refined.
Is
he doing that? I mean, think about how much they fight about it. Plus, I love that she said Fabergé egg, the way she said that.
It's so funny.
I was like laughing.
I agree with her. I agree with Allison that hawk is a very funny word.
It is.
I love when they had that, like, she says it like hawk. There are words where you say them and they lose all meaning. Like, am I saying that word correctly? I thought hawk was a very funny word. She uses the can opener to serve as a distraction so Allison can escape the storage unit. Neil turns around to go pick up the can opener. Allison stops in this very high pressure moment where she feels like she can't be caught by Neil and takes the Red Sox hat that Neil has said he has come to get and stuffs it on her head and then runs away.
So, I think some audience members are going to think she just put a hat on her head to be like a disguise, like she just like threw a hat on. So it's like you can't see her face clearly. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's got to be that Red Sox cap that he came for.
It's just being petty. That's what it is. It's just the petty squabbles it's petty defiances. That's what it is. It's the petty defiances that it's like when she kicks in the Belichick hoodie in the frame and takes and wears the hoodie and gets jelly from the donut on it and powder from the donut on it. It's just petty defiances to make it feel like you're doing something. Like, I feel like she had progressed beyond this in season 1. And here we have her kind of like reverting back to it again, which is sad.
One of the things that I appreciated about this whole section was it seemed like all the things that happened in season 1, but it's all happening much faster and closer together. So, like, if we do assume that the storage unit in general was already like a oh my god moment, but then things like Diane seeing the can opener. And we have to have that moment of like, oh my God, does Chuck like gaslight her and like hide stuff here and then yell at her about stuff? Or maybe even forgets he put it there. I don't even know. Then Neil like showing up, like those types of stakes where she has to like run away from him, her grabbing the hat. All of that happened in like a minute. And it's like those types of things, like that Belichick hoodie was an entire episode. And then now it's like grabbing the hat and running away, that type of petty. It's just 1 second. Like it's all starting to happen faster and faster and faster. More back to back. They're happening quicker and just like more intense, I think,
Yeah, it's because I think the more we live in this world, the more we see that things like the Belichick hoodie, these are not extreme examples. These are the rule. They're not exceptions. These are how these people live their lives. And I think that's why it feels like it's coming faster and faster, is because we're so much more meshed in their everyday world. And we see that this is the kind of shit that just happens constantly.
I also think that it's the show itself speeding up the pace.
Oh, yes, for sure.
And so that feels like, they eased us in, was like, look at this one infraction and we're going to make an entire episode around it. Versus now, look, there was like 5 infractions in one moment, in one scene, that happened like back to back. If you know what each of them mean and what each of them represent, look how much more it's happening. It's just, I can feel the pace of the show picking up.
Let's move over to Allison and Patty because it overlaps, especially with the PI. We already talked about the end of the episode with Billy the PI and Chuck. I thought it was very sad at the end of the episode that we see that she is using the pearl necklace to pay for Billy the PI's services, because it almost feels like Kevin kind of wins, right? He's so nasty to her about the pearl necklace. Even when he sees it in the sitcom, in the multicam section, he says, that's why you're acting all high and mighty, because you got that pearl necklace on. The fact that he put it in the storage unit kind of like hid it away from her. The fact that she wears it just to feel, it doesn't go with her outfit. She does kind of look silly wearing, a very fancy pearl necklace, but she feels like it like armors her a little bit. And, then to be called Wilma Flintstone, even by Diane, like a poor man's Wilma Flintstone, the whole thing was just very, very sad. And then she ends up having to get rid of it anyway.
Also, the fact that he knows that she has it and knows it was in the storage unit and, like, that isn't called out. Like, there's so much to that stuff that's messy.
Well, it's from her grandmother, too. Imagine. No,
but hold on. Pause on that. He sees she's wearing something from a storage unit that's supposed to be secret from her. And there's zero commentary on that because it's all so fast paced at this point that it doesn't even matter. We're not even going to get into it. We're not going to have an argument about something of substance, about the fact that like you went into my secret storage unit that I have with Chuck. How did you even find that out? Nothing of substance. We just keep going with the like nasty comments, like that's how petty and nasty and weird it is that like they never even get into anything of like, how the hell did you even get those pearls?
Yeah, that's not even like worth a discussion kind of thing.
Doesn't even care. It's also just like there's 20 other things he's already done.
Right. Where do you draw the line to make your stand, right? To have your arguments. For me, it's also the heirloom aspect, though. For that was huge. Imagine.
It was the last vestige of who she used to be.
Presumably it was a final parting, like, gift from her grandmother. Imagine, and then imagine that you have to be forced to give it away to use it for payment for services.
But to get out of your current life. So it's like, see, to me, I think it's like who she was and who she could have been. And she had to sell that in order to get out of this shitty situation that she wished she had never gotten into in the first place. But it's all like, it's one of those things I say often about my own self. I'm like, thank you, 25-year-old self, for having like prepared that, because I'm actually yielding the benefits of that now because I did something when I was 25. Thank you for being a good enough granddaughter or whatever that you got these pearls. You had this whole other life. You saved them. And now because of that, you're like paying for a new life, hopefully, for you to be able to get out of here. And I do think it's a really huge moment of giving up on sitting in the like what I could have been, what I should have been, my potential from before, and giving that up, letting it go a little bit and saying, I'm going to move forward. I'm going to use this money to move forward now. That's a big step for her.
That's a great point. That's actually a great point, and actually definitely smooths over that kind of loss, like the ability that it can open a door to her new world. I actually like that a lot. I'm gonna fully embrace that interpretation of it. Patty says in this episode a couple of times, "I meant it when I said I was out." She says, "This is the last time I'm going to help you, and then you're on your own." Patty, no one believes you. I don't even think you believe you when you say that to Allison, right? Am I right?
I think she desperately wants to be out, but I think that this is like just part of the futility, of the situation that like everybody's in. Like you're in. You don't get to say I'm out unless, you're going to actually kill yourself or do something. Like there is no out. This is life, and this is where you are, and like you aren't going to be able to move away from it. And Patty always, she has a much bigger heart and much bigger attachment, obviously, to Allison than she's ever going to really admit. So we have that element as well. But I just think so long as you stay in Worcester, so long as you stay here, you're always going to be in. Like you said, it's a small town. Like everybody's in. The pawn shop guy's in.
But she takes her pound of flesh. Let's play the "You Suck" audio clip.
This guy couldn't have met you in a well-lit coffee shop or an office or something.
Oh, he picked the spot. I didn't want to put him out. Well, are you that surprised I'm bad at negotiating?
No. Once I saw you pay Kevin $20 so he wouldn't wear sweats to a wake.
Yeah, my cousin's, and he wore cargo shorts. Well, I will let you do the negotiating from now on for us.
Allison? No. I am not here for us. Okay? I am helping you with this one last thing.
Just say it. Fake my own death.
Because when you go, you're taking all this shit with you. And everything you dragged me into.
I know.
Tammy is still asking questions about Nick. We broke my brother. Ever since I actually made the decision to start talking to you, I don't think that I've had one day that's felt normal or easy. You're pretty much a pain in my ass, and most days you suck.
I know that too.
I felt like this was Patty's way of justifying to herself why she's going to stay in, because she cathartically gets her feelings about what a pain in the ass Allison has been in her life from the day she decided to talk to her, ending with "most days you suck." Now, I'm curious if Allison just agreeing and saying like, "I know that too," takes the wind out of Patty's sails with how good it maybe felt in the moment to say that. You know what I mean? When you work up the courage to tell someone off, it's deflated a little bit if their response is, you're right.
Yeah, it absolutely deflates the situation. But also, what's the response to "most days you suck"? What's the right answer to that?
Most days you suck.
Right, exactly. There's really nothing to say. If someone's going to be that nasty to you, half the time, if someone's going to say something like that to you, just stare at them. Don't say anything. Let them get uncomfortable.
God damn it!
That's always a response you can have. There wasn't actually that much with Allison and Patty other than kind of setting the table of, Allison, of course, this is Allison's MO. We talked about it. She did it a bunch in just this episode. She's like, "I don't want to be me anymore, and I'm sorry, but I need your help." It's the preamble, and then I need the favor. I mean, she's done it a lot over the course of the series. I feel like it was like a big, bright spotlight on this pattern she has in this episode. I thought it was very interesting that they kind of highlighted it everywhere.
Well, it just feels, like I said, it feels sped up. And so it feels like you're seeing the same, can I get a favor from you, or I need something from you, back to back, because it just feels like we sped up the record. So now you're like seeing it over and over and over again. It doesn't happen once in an episode. It happens 10 times in an episode. Yeah,
it's very accelerated. One note that it ties Allison and Tammy to Patty. There's a Tammy section where they're having the Chinese food, Tammy and Patty, and she says, not that one, it has cashews. I know you hate cashews. And Patty is unnerved. She's undone by this because she is like, how do you know that though? And Tammy says, I pay attention. In the episode, after the "you suck" comment, she says, what's in your cup? And she says, vodka. And she's like, you don't like vodka. And Patty says, how do you know? And she's like, you mentioned it one time. I like this book ending juxtaposition that these two women in Patty's life that she cares very much about, to varying degrees, but she cares about both of them, both pay attention to her. And I don't think she has any fucking clue what to do with people paying attention to her. She's very unnerved by it, especially the Tammy. Like, she literally has to leave when Tammy says that. Like, she's like gonna have like a panic attack about it. But she seems very unnerved by this concept that people are paying, that these women care enough about me to note that I don't like cashews or vodka. I thought that was a very sweet, but also, again, kind of sad that this very adult woman has not ever had this experience before.
She really does not know what to do with that level of paying attention and just like actually caring about her.
Yes. Imagine being on the receiving end of that, though, if you've never had that experience, but you're in your mid-30s. That is kind of heartbreaking. Patty and Neil's parents really fuck them up. The two of them are so stunted in so many ways when it comes to emotions and feelings and love and reciprocation and friendship and healthy relationships. This was just kind of another reminder of, man, how many disservices were done to Patty, that this is how she feels she has to react to it, because she doesn't know how to process it. She doesn't have the mechanisms to process people caring about her.
She likes to think that she can be like a lone wolf, and that she doesn't need to rely on anyone, and no one needs, her a part of their lives or whatever. And I think that even just like in her shop, like that's like, she doesn't have any coworkers. She doesn't have anything, like she really chose to kind of set up her entire life by herself. So to have these people who catch on to these small details about things that you like or dislike, yeah, I think especially when you're not like purposely allowing those people to do that, you're not like, oh, I'm going to share some information about myself, but they just picked it up on you. It's like, ooh.
Now, but let's flip over to the other side of it, though, where Patty then is put in a position of dealing with Neil, and then she has to become the caregiver for a second.
What are you doing?
I need a hat.
You're wearing a hat.
I know I'm wearing a hat, but I need a different one. I promised Kevin I'd find his vintage Red Sox hat, but I went to the storage unit and dug through everything, and it still wasn't there. Oh, shit.
Shut up. Tammy is right downstairs. Neil. Please don't say I do anything stupid, okay? You start this thing with Allison, it's just going to cause you trouble. And you're already... If you need help or something, I'm around.
Get out.
Neil is having a legit anxiety attack because of the hat that he can't find because Allison took it. His body is heaving. He's almost crying and sobbing. Like, as anxiety panic attack as you can imagine he is about to have, it takes Patty a real beat to switch gears into loving sister mode. And by the time she does, Neil's already like iced over, and he responds with "get out" when she says, "I'll help you." And it takes her like a fraction of a beat to get there. And I feel like up until the point where she hit him with a beer bottle, she would have switched into that gear much quicker. But things have changed in their relationship now, so it takes her a beat to get there. And I think that's an interesting switch because it's too late. it's too late to get to be the sister that she would have been, that maybe could have tried to talk Neil down from an anxiety attack. I feel like for 30 years, Patty probably would have instantly jumped in and said, we can work on it together. I'll help you look. And now that's changed a bit. Good or bad? I don't know.
I just think that there's too much water under the bridge. I mean, everything that happened with Allison, the fact that Patty had to take this really, really long time to actually come to his aid in the basement. You know, like it took a while to decide to take him to the hospital. In that, I think that broke, you know, their bond between one another, where it's like, I put someone in front of you and I maybe even put my own self in front of you. So now there's two people in front of you. Whereas before I would have 100% just taken you directly from the kitchen to the hospital, you know? And then, so now there's just this, it's broken, you know, in that regard.
Yeah, it reminds me of when Patty says to Allison last week, when it was just the two of us, trying to kill Kevin was defensible. It was justifiable. But now that the world had gotten larger, it's changed and doesn't feel right anymore. It's kind of like this, like one-on-one, she knows how to do it, but now people have come in between and interceded, and it's changed. But it was because she does make the switch, right? She does make the switch, but it's just a second too late.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, same like you could say, like they said in the hospital, we brought you to the hospital, you know, it was like that. It was like too little too late, you know. Yeah, you brought me to the hospital, but how long did you wait? You know, timing matters.
And really interesting, Allison tries to take co-credit for bringing him to the hospital in the beginning of the episode. We didn't even talk about that. I thought that was super fucking ballsy of her, because Neil obviously knows that and he calls her. He's like, no, Patty took me to the hospital. You did it. I was like, Allison, why are you picking that battle? Like, of all the shit you have to get going on, like, and get out of the way here, you're going to pick the battle and try and take claim for that?
I swear they were just trying to hedge their bets that some details he would forget. You know, like he did have a head injury. You know, maybe more than one detail might slip away, and they might just be able to just convince him that that's not exactly what happened.
Tammy shows up at Patty's apartment because her power is out and she needs a place to stay. Now, I'm sympathetic to the power being out. I'm sympathetic to, you don't know how long it's going to be. You need a place to crash. But she also knows Patty. How does she think showing up at her door with a bag in hand is going to play well, and Patty is going to act like the emotionally mature adult that we know Patty is not?
See, this is the rub with Tammy.
It is, and I know you're going to have feelings on this. That's why I'm setting you up for it.
She, on one hand, she can come off very caring, you know, things about the cashews and, you know, things like I paid attention to this and that. But other times she is so pushy and so forceful and so like she has an agenda and she is going to make Patty go along. And if she doesn't, she can guilt her right away. So it's like, what? You don't want me here? And it's like, wait, no, you just barged in. Like, it wouldn't matter what I was doing. I could be sitting here, you know, taking a nap. I could be watching TV. And if I'm not expecting someone, I still have to have a moment of like, I wasn't expecting you, you know, to like kind of get over. And Tammy she uses those things to manipulate, you know, Patty and be like, oh, what? You don't want me to be here? You're uncomfortable with me here? Anyone's uncomfortable with someone who comes to the door unexpectedly. I think the first thing you say if someone else is in the house is, are you expecting someone at the door? Because everyone has that, I don't know what's happening. And everyone kind of has that like looking around moment where it's like, Tammy does this type of stuff to push Patty into these scenarios where it's like, did you not want me to come over? And it forces Patty to say, no, of course I want you to come over. Of course I want you here, because Patty's never going to say that. She's not going to say, Tammy, oh, hey, I was so hoping you would stop by. I really want you here. So the trick is to get Patty on her heels, and then she'll gush back. Oh, of course I wanted you here. I'm happy for you to be here. I'm comfortable with you here. She was never going to say those words. It's Tammy just like tricks her into saying them.
It makes you almost recast the cashews moment, right? Because moments like this, and you said it great, putting her back on her heels, it almost feels like a test, but it almost feels like a cop interrogating someone, where she's trying to like throw a lot of different scenarios at her so that she'll reveal her true colors, kind of thing. It all has a very kind of copy way to it. And so it's easy, if you wanted to recast when she says, you don't like cashews, I pay attention. Well, that's what a detective says, right? I pay attention to the details. So it's not maybe out of loving Patty that she knows that she doesn't like cashews. It's because Tammy treats Patty like she is a work subject and observes her that way. Like a suspect at all times. And so I show up at your house and it's like a test of how are you going to react now? Which, of course, I mean, Patty reacts by cleaning up incriminating evidence in front of her when she's going around throwing stuff out that could get her in trouble, including the cash book with the hollowed out book. Like, Patty, what are you doing? You're walking around with this garbage bag. You look like a crazy person throwing out books.
Also, when someone shows up unexpectedly, I mean, I definitely do this.
With a garbage bag in hand?
Maybe not so much of the garbage, but I absentmindedly clean up. I do. Like, as we're walking through a room, I start, like, straightening the pillows, or I start, like, picking up, like, dishes or something like that. So, this was an extreme version of that, but I don't think it's, like, that far out there that you would start to kind of, like, because you feel sensitive about your space being invaded. So you're, like, quick to kind of want to be like, ooh, this is uncomfortable. Now, we know the bigger picture as the audience. We know there's incriminating evidence. But if you just looked at it as a relationship, she's just kind of fidgeting in her own space.
Right. She's trying to armor herself and make herself feel comfortable.
When Tammy said, you've been reading that book for a long time.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's a real hollowed out middle of the book. It's real hard to get through the middle of this one. It's because it's not there. But I want to put this up on the board. Let's draw the difference between, because we painted these two moments. The vodka, you mentioned it once. I know you don't like it. Cashews, I pay attention. When Allison says offhandedly, it's vodka, you don't like it, you mentioned it once. That is friendship coming through. As shitty as Allison can be to Patty, that is love and friendship coming through. When Tammy says, you don't like cashews, I pay attention, that could be love. That could be love. But given these other things that Tammy does in the moment and the way she says it, it could also just be that she treats her like a suspect all the time.
Yeah. And I think that's one of those things that I don't know if you get away from that with Tammy. Like, I think that that's the way she approaches life.
I don't know if Patty can parse the difference between the two. She seems unnerved by both of them, more unnerved by Tammy's comment. Why is she more unnerved by Tammy's comment than she is by Allison's comment?
She's done crimes, and Tammy is a cop. So there is something there. Like, they're not allies. I have a question. How far do you think Tammy and Patty's relationship has gone? Because I cannot tell. It matters to me because I need to try to gauge how much she should know about one another, really. How much should Tammy really know about Patty? And how much is it like what we said, like just like you're collecting evidence because you're a cop? If they have like spent nights over each other's houses and okay, well then it would be reasonable she would know this. But they still have such a vibe of casual dating that I struggle with, like, where are we?
It feels like it has been kissing and maybe over the clothes things and nothing more. That's the vibe I get. I don't get full on like sweaty naked sex.
Sweaty naked sex, but just like they've never spent the night together. Is that the vibe you got?
Well, maybe they might have slept over, but not like had sex.
Like braided each other's hair,
like snuggles, right?
Why it matters to me, and because people are like, why, Caroline? Why do you care how far they've gone? Because it would impact how much of the details of someone's day-to-day life you would know. If you've slept over and had these like super intimate moments, then you would absolutely know more of those tiny details. So I'm trying to gauge Patty's response to it.
I 100% agree that it's actually a necessary question. But at the same time, Tammy being who Tammy is, she's also definitely gone through all of her medicine cabinets.
I know.
She has pulled open every single drawer in the kitchen. She knows everything that's there. She could tell her where bills are, paid and unpaid and overdue. She knows where it all is. She's definitely done that kind of reconnaissance because I don't think Tammy respects boundaries like that. The fact that she never opened up that book that Patty had been reading for so long shocks me because she feels like someone who kind of will invade privacy for sake of getting to know you.
Agreed.
You said it great. Patty's going to be more sensitive to Tammy knowing things because they've done crimes together, which is a perfect segue to.
So, work's been a lot. That guy who broke into Allison's, he had some weird pill bottle on him when he did. The only one not from Fiore's.
That's weird.
It's just one of those things that you'll never understand and you have to let go. Every case has them. But this guy, I don't know. It was weird. Yes, it feels like an itch.
This doesn't go anywhere in this episode, but we got to put it up on the board because we know Nick is still alive. Tammy telling Patty that Nick was found with a weird pill bottle on him that wasn't from Fiore's. And the fact that Tammy it feels like an itch that she's got to scratch. This is a problem. This is a problem because we know they got that pill bottle from when they went to Vermont and they beat up the trucker, when Patty specifically beat up the trucker because she thought Allison was being attacked. That's where that pill bottle comes from that Nick had on him. We've got to remember that. And the fact that it has resurfaced now, and we know that Tammy's going to be looking into that suspicious pill bottle, that is a ruh-roh we've got to put up on the board.
Well, she said a funny line, though. She said like a little bit of an out for Patty and Allison, because she said sometimes, there's details like that in every case that you just have to let go of, that you can't make sense of, and you just have to like blow it off, basically. That was like, oh, that's a little bit of hope, actually, that maybe she could or would, let that go.
Right. But then she immediately says, but it feels like an itch.
Yeah, I know. But I never thought about the concept of like, there's something in every case that you just can't really like figure out exactly. I don't know that me as a detective, I don't think I'm saying stuff like that. I'm thinking like, I'm going to figure it all out. It would nag me forever.
Let's take it to the bar where we learn randomly Bram has died since the end of season 1 on the toilet.
So weird.
So weird.
It surprised me so much. I was like, Bram died?
What a weird thing, especially since Bram came up last week and Patty was using Bram as Tammy's version of Allison.
Yeah, but that's pretty good then when you think about that, right?
Yeah, totally random that Bram. I'm curious if they couldn't get the actor to come back.
No, not random. We've already had I'm going to fake my own death. And she's equated to Bram, and now Bram's dead.
Yes, I mean, the act of him dying on the toilet is random to me. Thematically, it makes sense. And that we hadn't heard about it. This is the first time we've heard about it.
I wonder if really Tammy has said something about it, but because we kind of act as like Patty and Allison and like as the audience, that maybe it did come up in those conversations, but I swear to God, like she just didn't hear it.
That would be really shitty on her part, though, because she's acting in the bar like this is brand new information. She's like, this is why you've been so sensitive? You said you had a work thing. She's like, yeah, my partner died. Like,
but she didn't follow up. She said, I have a work thing. And she didn't say, what's your work thing? Like most relationships, you'd say, what's your work thing? And she doesn't follow up. So then, Tammy kind of plays this game of like, okay, I'm not going to give you any more information then, and it turns out, our partner died.
What do you think of Patty in this situation, though? Because Patty sincerity is so hard to gauge sometimes in this show. And I think Patty is more sincere than maybe any other character in the show. But when she tells her, like, yeah, listen, I've got baggage, but I'm working on it. She's very kissy with Tammy in the scene. She's very complimentary to her. She says, you look good before she leaves. These are not things Patty ever does. But here she's doing it. Sincere? Is she trying to get back in the good graces? Is this cover up because now she's been unnerved by the pill bottle thing and that's playing on her mind?
I'm going to go with all those layers. And additionally, she just found out the partner died. So I think that is natural. Like, I mean, if you were kind of being a little cold shouldery with someone or a little bit hard edged for whatever reason, and then they expose that something pretty catastrophic has happened to them recently, you might soften. You might just be like, oh shit, I'm being a jerk here. I have my own crap and I shouldn't be doing that to you. And you do try to kind of like, smooth it over.
So kissy though. I mean, to the point where Tammy has to be like, we can't be making out with you at a funeral.
I think she's just trying to sell it that she is, she's in this relationship. And for the life of me, I can't 100% figure out if she is. A lot of this, she was like thrown in with Tammy, that if it never exactly felt like she wouldn't have pursued Tammy, I don't believe in any way, had Tammy not been so assertive with her. Like she was like, hey, like we're doing this. We're going to start dating. We're going to like, I don't know how into Tammy Patty is versus this is what she does. Like she goes along.
I think she desperately wants to be into Tammy more than she actually is because she can't be with Allison the way she wants to be.
Or maybe even if there wasn't all this other stuff, she could have been into Tammy. Maybe that's a possibility, but there's so many things in her way, her baggage, if you will. All the things that have happened, all the lies, all the ways that they've had to, create distance between Tammy and Patty because she has to lie to her about all these things. Maybe it would have been a great relationship and it could have really worked out, but can it ever? No, because Patty's not in it. She's not authentically in it.
I want to put Tammy and Patty on the board for Let's Keep a Watch On, not because I'm particularly into the relationship. I think I'm more into Patty growing and expanding as an adult who can handle and process these emotions. That's the kind of thing that I'm actually interested in watching, to see for that growth and to see how she handles it. I'm really not invested in this relationship at all. They don't particularly sell me. I do want to see where Patty can go as a partner in a relationship. That actually greatly interests me.
Agreed. She needs to have all this growth, so that she can hopefully be able to be in a healthy relationship in the future. I want her to pursue that side of her.
She's going through the relationship state right now that a lot of people experience when they're in late high school or early college. Let's finish off the episode quickly. Let's talk about Allison and Sam. I don't know who's more petty in this relationship. We talked already about how Allison comes in and says, I want to heal our relationship. I need a favor. But Sam jumps all over her and doesn't let her speak, and also tells her that she's been fired, which is brand new information to Allison. Who's right in this situation? Are either of them right?
Well, how long has it been since she worked that she doesn't even know she's fired?
Couple days.
Right away, I was like, wait, what? How do you not know? I honestly forgot the depth of Sam and Allison's relationship from season 1 when they started talking to each other. It took the whole back and forth for me to be like, they were sleeping together in season 1.
Just a few days ago.
How did I forget that they were that close, because this version of them is, totally not that anymore. And I was running the gamut of emotions with these two.
Yeah, and also I don't think it's been a ton of time since the two of them last had sex in the back room. I mean, in timeline-wise, I don't think it's probably been more than a couple of weeks since that all happened.
So then if you go from that to firing her, again, I had to remind myself of how close they were, and then go to firing her and being get out of my face kind of situation. I understand. There'd be a lot of nastiness, post whatever, right. I can't even say.
But he says he fired her because she said, I don't need your help anymore. That doesn't necessarily equate to firing someone, though.
Messy.
Right. There have to be differences. We're not going to fuck anymore, or you're not going to help me kill my husband anymore is different than you don't need my help, so I'm going to fire you from your job.
This was messy. My brain had to click a bunch of information through. I'm making a hand like a cog and next to my face right now. I had to be click, 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 click. They were sleeping together. Click, click, click. Wait, they were high school sweethearts. Click, 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 click. I had to go through all of these things to be this is where we landed with Sam, huh? Where we're just going to be shitty to each other now.
The thing that made me vomit a little bit in my mouth is when Allison says to him, I just want to be Allie again. Girl, what are you doing? When have you ever referred to yourself as Allie in the course of this show? Listen, Sam already thinks of you as Allie, and he was only fucking you because he thought you were still Allie, the 17-year-old that he had feelings for. We've discussed this all through season 1. Allison has not listened to our podcast because we talked all through season 1 about how he didn't realize who Allison was today. He only had this image of who she was when he would call her Allie, when she maybe was Allie. Allison McRoberts is not Allie, and the fact that she invokes that here as a way to the only thing I could think of for her to invoke that nickname and say that line is to kind of start greasing the wheels again so she can get back in to get whatever she wants to get out of him.
Yeah, I mean, it was his little nickname, for her. And also yes. I know what she was in high school. So it'd be the same if she was I just want to be your little honey again or whatever.
Right. Well, it's like the Trish and Lisa Fazzolari, right? It's when Neil says, Trish, don't call me that. I think anyone else calls Allison Allie, she's probably going to grimace, would be my guess. So the fact that she's using that here offensively, but on the same token, doesn't Allison have, given what Allison's been through, what Allison lives with every day, should we be so harsh on her for using everything at her disposal to get whatever she can from this world?
No, I mean, and this is what we talked about in the last episode, where she is doing like a cataloging of what are the cards I hold? What can I do? Who's still on my side? And like, where does my power lie? What role do I play? Who do I need to apologize to? And what do I need to do in order to like pull at their heartstrings? That's it. And he's just one more on that list.
Man, the webs are just getting fast and furious and thick and entangled. I don't know where we go for the next, like, 6 episodes. It already feels like it's, like, going so fast.
That's the thing. I mean, I can feel the speed, the pacing of everything just going faster and faster. I am glad that we understand as the audience that this is the last season and that we are having to wrap things up. Because otherwise, I think as we were watching this, I would be feeling like, wow, this roller coaster really got a lot faster. I wonder what they're doing here. Like, what's going on? But I get it. Like we have just a handful of episodes to bring all of this to a close. And so I want them to like put on the speed. We need to collect as much storyline as humanly possible in order to really get a full vision of what this world was supposed to be. I know Valerie Armstrong wanted more seasons than this. So I know she's got a lot more story to tell. And I'm hoping in the back half of this whole thing, she's gonna be able to shove more and more and more backstory, more information, more of the things that we would have gotten to learn over more seasons. I'm really crossing my fingers on that. This is Caroline.
And this is Mike. Thank you for listening to Kevin Can Podcast Himself, your dedicated after show podcast for Kevin Can Fuck Himself. If you wouldn't mind heading over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts and rate, review, and subscribe, that would be wonderful. And while you're there, if you could leave us a 5-star review, we would really appreciate it. Because honestly, guys, listen, butts are for excuses and strippers.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening. This has been an original Pod Clubhouse production. Pod Clubhouse is a podcast network dedicated to encouraging collaboration among podcasters and friends to bring a fresh voice and diverse perspective on a wide array of content. Please visit and leave a comment for us at podclubhouse.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast feeds on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us at Pod Clubhouse. Our DMs are always open, and we'd love to hear from you.